What's up, everybody? It's me and Roman.
What's up, guys?
Roman is the man behind the camera most of the time, but he's also a serial entrepreneur and has had his hand in multiple businesses. And so I thought today I just wanted to muse on pricing and like what to do when you get too busy. I know it's kind of rare for some out there, but it happens before you know it, and you can really get yourself into a pickle if you don't know how to manage it. So I thought we'd just chat about that for a bit.
Heck yeah.
So the reason this came about is I've got a friend who charges a good amount, and she just recently upped her hourly fees, and people are just like kicking her door down to work with her. And she's been stretched beyond thin almost since I've known her for a few years, but like she's reaching her breaking point. She's reaching the point where she just really doesn't have the capacity. Everybody has to sleep at least a little bit. And so I think something happens, especially like in the beginning of business or when you spend a good amount of time like in a desperate situation, like you get used to saying yes to everything. And opportunity comes in, you're like, yep, I'll do it right away. And you develop this habit of just like always saying yes to things. And it's not that that's a bad thing, because that habit for a lot of us eventually gets us out of that situation where we're desperate. But then like, what do you do when you're transitioning out of desperation, but you still have this habit of like always saying yes and just breaking yourself over it. So when I was chatting with her the other day, like two things come to mind for me. One is like, you don't have to schedule everything right away. It's like somebody wants you to start another project. You don't have to start it this week. It's okay to say, okay, look, I can get to that and we could start it in 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever your timelines are. And so like delaying things out, that just adds on the demand when people hear that like, oh, you're 6 weeks out from starting anything new, like, oh, I better get in sooner. And then also another obvious one that it's easy to see from the outside is like raise your prices. Like if I was working 20 hours a day, maybe I just like 5x my prices, charge 5 times as much. But there's some kind of mental barrier there. Like, if you're already charging something like $175 an hour, like tripling your prices, your hourly rate goes to the moon, and it starts to feel like, oh man, I could never charge people that much. But there's plenty of people that do charge $400, $500, $1,000 an hour. So have you ever run into this situation or like had these barriers around jacking up prices?
Yeah, 100%. That level of pricing that you're talking about, like above the $200 an hour, I know a lot of people get weird about charging that because that's like kind of what like a lawyer would charge, and people are like, well, I can't charge more than like a lawyer charges.
Yeah.
They say stuff like that. But like if you have the demand and the values there, and people are paying what they're currently paying, then there's probably a subsect of people that will pay even more. But I have a lot of experience with this because working with my father, he always had this mindset of like, I can't raise my prices because if I make too much money, then that means like someone's getting scammed.
Yeah.
Like too much profit means like I'm a bad person almost. Mm-hmm. And for him, that was like around that $100 an hour price point. Like he didn't feel comfortable charging more than that because he felt like he was duping people. And but the ironic thing is, when I finally pushed him and we did raise our prices, we doubled our rates at one point. And our biggest client came back, and he was so afraid we were going to lose this gigantic client. They came back to us and they said, oh, that's great, you raised your rates. Finally.
That's funny.
And they were happy to pay it because they knew that we had been below market value for so long. And this price raise put us above market value, but we were worth it. And it's hard to see your own worth sometimes. Like, we're in a vacuum, and a lot of times, especially in service businesses, you only ever hear the negative reviews. I think if the demand is there, like you were saying, if you're busy, you're working all the hours of the week, That's the only way to go. Raise the prices, see what happens. Like worst case scenario, you bring them back down. Like worst case scenario, you lose 100% of your clients, which is basically impossible.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, you lose none of them and they all pay the new price. But actually, I'd say the best case is actually in the middle, where, because think about it, if you double your rates and lose 50% of your clients, well, now you make the same amount of money for half the time.
Yeah.
Win. Go fishing.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and I think there's two like major holdups that come to mind, and one is like your own feelings about like numbers. Like I come from a pretty poor background, and so like 150 an hour sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
But when I like put my business math hat on, it's like that's not very much at all.
Exactly.
But the other thing is like you spend so much time in that desperate situation where you want people to say yes, you become like deathly afraid of people saying no. But like when you're in this situation where you have this much capacity and you have this much opportunity, like you want people to say no. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Is like you need to raise your prices enough so that people self-select and you only end up with those willing to spend that much.
Yep.
And cut out the others. Like there's no way around having to cut out some unless you can find a way to really like increase your capacity.
Yep. Everybody has like one or two clients where they're like, man, I wish I had like 50 more of this client. And that's actually what raising your prices can get you. Like when you move up market, the quality of clients increases significantly, and it weeds out those nightmare clients. It's just kind of how it is. A good book on this is called The Pumpkin Plan.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Basically, the idea is that you're constantly cutting out the bottom 20% of your business always. So like the 20% most headache clients, the 20% lowest margin clients. And by doing that, you make more room for clients at the top that are super high margin and super fun to work with. So.
Yep, Pumpkin Plan. It's a good book to check out. I always read like the first quarter of it, and then I'm like, I gotta go do this.
Yeah, that one's a pretty easy one to understand, though. That's all you really need.
Yeah. What other things go into this?
Honestly, I think the biggest one is just like try it and don't be afraid.
Oh, I know what I was thinking. Like, you don't just have to like be like, okay, this is my new price, and like just tell everybody. Like, if you have some really good clients, like you just open up a dialogue with them and be like, hey guys, like I do this for you. You're really happy with it. I want to do this. I want to continue doing this for you and maybe more. But like I'm running into an issue where like I need to raise my prices, and just like see what they say, like take their temperature a little bit. Like that one that you had, like they would have been like, oh yeah, for sure. And then others, like you might see someone get a lump in their throat.
Yeah.
And you're like, I really like this client. Maybe I won't raise the price for him. And just kind of like, you don't have to just blanket do it across the board. Like everything's negotiable.
Totally.
And maybe like you don't raise your prices with a client, but instead you like do less for them. Like you trickle things out, you spread them out.
Exactly.
You get them to take some of the load. Like you just find a way to work together. Because if you do good like work, you provide value, like it's in everyone's best interest to continue that. And like you can't help anybody if you go out of business. So like you need to make sure that you put your business hat on once in a while, and you're like, okay, look at this from a high level. Like in order to maintain this, we need to change some things and do that.
Definitely. Yeah, with those big clients, we did talk to the CFOs first. So there was a little bit of negotiation into it. And then, a lot of our smaller clients, we just ended up doing a little bit less for them. But like everyone was happy they were like, yep, this makes sense. And I mean, that was B2B, so it's a little bit different business to business because they understand how business works. And so they kind of can see the costs that go into it. Sometimes with consumers, like if you're doing remodels or something, it is a little bit harder to communicate that, but you still can.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's
and
just
that's
math,
like
and if you explain it, they're not like...
That's like a core sales skill set in home services, is like being able to explain a little bit about how business works. If you want to convince those people, because some people are just like, oh, like you make more than me, like that's bullshit. But like maybe those aren't your customer.
That's
you know?
true.
Like
Yeah.
you don't want to work with them. I know people who charge like multiples more, like 3 or 4 times more than their competitors, and they make plenty of sales. Like,
Yep.
So
It's a lot like the Google
can be
review thing. You got to explain to them why it matters
Yeah.
and why and how it helps you.
Yeah, and like if you can find a way to make it in their best interest to leave you a Google review, like even better.
That actually reminds me with the sales thing. Someone once told me that the key to a successful sales conversation is not like you selling to them and then because then they're against you, like you guys are on different sides. The key is to try and get on their side and then work together to make the thing happen. I think that's kind of what this is like. Like if you're being like, oh yeah, like this is our cost structure. This is why it costs what it costs. This is why we're more expensive than the other guy down the street. That stuff I think helps get you on their side, and then you guys can work together to make it work.
Yeah, and like qualifying people ahead of time too. Like if you're busy and you're thinking about raising your prices and you're worried that some of the people you talk to are not going to pay this stuff, like throw out the ballparks on the phone when you first talk to them and take their temperature early. Like you don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to convince someone who's not going to even consider paying you what you charge.
Yeah.
So that just has to become part of the ball game of like, I think one of the biggest things is like you have to make the mental switch of like you want some people to say no, and it's like you make it easier to give them the opportunities to do that before you spend a bunch of time on them.
For sure. What do you think about people in your industry having pricing on their websites?
I think there's pros and cons to it. Like it depends on what you do. Sometimes it's hard to put pricing if you do something that's very variable.
For sure.
But there's different business models and like different strategies. And so it could be part of your strategy to put your prices on your website if you are trying to qualify people. If you do not want anyone calling or filling out a lead form if they're not willing to consider prices that are much higher than everyone else's, then you might want to put those prices on your website. Or if you charge way less than everybody else, maybe you want to advertise that. So it depends. Do you want the pricing to be out there before you talk to someone, or do you want it to be after? And I've gone both ways. I go back and forth every once in a while, and I know people that do the same. So
Yeah, I've seen some interesting ones in the IT space lately. Like one company, it just says contracts starting at $3,500 a month. I think that's all that is trying to do is like, well, if someone's looking for something for $1,000 a month, not a fit. Doesn't quite work for us. And I've seen others that have like price sliders, like number of users, and then it'll give like a range estimate. And I've seen that for certain types of home services too, like moving companies do that a lot.
yeah, like flooring, if you're charging by square footage, you can usually make a calculator that does that.
Yep. Yeah.
Or if you sell like a specific service, but you only use like very specific products, it's like you don't use all the options. You use this one.
Yeah.
You can put the pricing on there.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for like, because I know some builders, they have an issue where they're really upfront about their pricing, and then they'll have competitors that are a little bit less upfront, or they'll come in with a really low bid on the front end to get the job, but then throughout the job, there are all these extra costs that weren't accounted for up front. And so then, number one might have had everything in the initial quote, so it ended up higher. Number two didn't have everything in the initial quote, so it's lower. They got the job, but then overall it ended up being more expensive. Do you run into that, or do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, from the contractor's perspective, it's an education thing, I think. Like, you have to go in and educate prospects about the situation that they're getting into. And like, hey, let me tell you a story of what happened with Joe Schmo. Accepted this bid because it was lower, but it was incomplete. Ended up costing a lot more, taking a lot longer. Contractor bailed because he wouldn't pay. Like, whatever. Like, you have to educate people on that. Videos are really solid for that. Like, you can make a video and at some part during the prospect process, like make sure that they watch it. And you could even say like, hey, like I only work with people that watch this video. So check this out and then give me a call when you're done. Something like that. Because then they know that they take you seriously, they watch it. And then if they call you after watching it, now they are like a much better prospect. They're much more bought into working with you. They look at you as an expert. They accepted what you said. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how it is with like a lot of consumer facing stuff, especially in construction especially. Like I don't know if it's the same like with mechanics and stuff. It's like, you know, you go to the mechanic, they're like, oh yeah, this is wrong, this you need this and this. Like you can't really go in and verify that a lot of times. Like I had a mechanic tell my wife that she needed to change the air filter and her cabin filter in her car like a week after I changed it. And it's like they just add that on, they don't even look.
Yeah.
But with construction, like, I don't know, there's a lot more that's in your face, but still, like, you have to educate people on what's going on, especially when they haven't done this before. Like, someone's never done a remodel, maybe it's their first home, they have no idea. And so there's, like, certain things you need them to be aware of in order for them to be a good customer, and it can cause problems if they don't. So, like it or not, you just have to become good at teaching this stuff and communicating, and you just do that by practice.
Yeah. I wonder how long until, actually it's probably already happening, the consumers are checking quotes with ChatGPT and being like, is anything fishy in this estimate?
I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, AI is crazy.
It's crazy.
It's only like 80% right though.
Yeah. That's true.
Or less.
Yeah.
Like I use it for searches all the time, online searches about stuff that I know about.
Yeah.
And like, it just pulls from all the available data. So if there's a bunch of wrong information out there, like it'll give you wrong answers all the time.
It's true.
So I don't know, like AI can be really helpful. I use it mostly for kind of like prompting myself.
Yeah.
To come up with things like writing content and stuff. Did I tell you about the, what I call it, the core message framework?
No.
Okay, so this is how I'm using AI basically to write content for websites and build them now. So like, it's not super beginner friendly, but like, I don't want to dissuade anyone from trying it because you should. But the idea is, okay, you have a website for a business. And you have to have all these pages, all these sections. You need to write all this content, but like, what do you put on there? And so the idea behind the core message framework is it's a way to basically use AI to write it all, but like with your information, your content. And so the idea is you have a core message for the business, a core message for the website as a whole, the core message for each page on the website, and then a core message for each section. And you use AI to basically prompt you to do the whole thing. So you tell it what the core message framework is, and then you say like, walk me through, like ask me questions and help me figure out the core message of the business, the website, each page, and then the sections. And then you just go through and like, what is the core message of your business? So it's like remodeling company. It's like, you know, we do remodels and additions in this area for these types of people. Like that might be the core message. And then like the website's core message could be the same as that. Like this is what we do, where we do it, who we do it for. And then the cool thing is like AI's looked at a bazillion websites. So it'll start to like kind of guide you through it and give you options. So it'll be like, okay, like, here's the pages that we think you need, or that I think you need, the AI says that, and then you kind of say, okay, yeah, we want these ones. And then it'll be like, okay, what's the home page about? Typically the home page is about like who your business is. And so it'll give you options. It'll be like A, B, C, or D. And after like you do like 6 of these, the options that it starts giving you really align with what you've been saying, and so you start to be able to just pick. And what's nice about this is I do it on my phone while I'm walking around, and like I can kind of like frame out an entire website and all the content just while I'm walking around on my phone. And when you get all these core messages together, I move them to a document so I can look at all of them, and then just keep going with the AI and like, you know, okay, this section is about this. This is the point of this section. And then I might have additional input or not. But the whole idea is like with AI, it's not very good if you just say, hey, write all the content for this website or write all the content for this page. Like if it gets too big of a project, it starts to break down and just make up random stuff. Mm-hmm. So this way you're able to like break it into really tiny bite-sized chunks and then feed it the information you want it to turn into writing. And so then by the end of it, like you actually have something that's like authentic, that's like you wrote it, but you're able to do it while you're like walking around town with your dogs or something like that.
That's sweet.
After you have the whole like outline done, you feed in, you could either do section by section or page by page, depending on how much content you have, but let's just say it's by section. You feed in the section and then you give it the prompt, edit this content with a design first mentality and include notes for the web designer on how this content will be laid out on the website.
Cool.
And so what it does is it creates, it just takes your content, but it's like, it says how it's going to be laid out. Because if you just put the bare content in to AI and have it build the website, it'll do funky stuff like have 5 columns and then 2 columns and it'll all just look janky. But if you have it write it with a design first focus, when you feed it back in and you say, hey, make a website of this, like it comes out looking awesome. I did a whole landing page the other day. It was like 8 sections in one pass. I only had to make 2 edits. Like one button was off to the side. I had to tell it to move it to the middle.
Nice.
But like other than that, it was completely professional, like A+ grade looking landing page. And this is how I did it. And the key was breaking it down into small sections and then having the AI write the content in a design first way. Oh, an extra credit, I also had it list out all the images that I needed, and I had it create a prompt for each one, and then I fed those prompts into ChatGPT and had it create all the images and then labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever.
Nice.
Put them back in, and so when it built the landing page, it had all the images, icons, all custom made.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so like
you should do one of these live.
Yeah, I could.
That'd be good.
Like I can't say that it's beginner friendly because I can only do this because I've been doing it for so long. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't want to dissuade people from trying because that's how you learn. Like if you learn how to do it this way, you can get to a good result too. It'll just take you longer.
Totally.
But this is definitely like the future of how this stuff is going. And it's not, I saw an MIT article the other day of like people's reading skills are going down the more they use ChatGPT. And so it's true, like if all you do is prompt stuff and then take whatever it gives you and put it in and like not read anything and not think about anything, like you're going to get dumber. Mm-hmm. So I like to use AI in a way where it's like augmenting my own thoughts and abilities. Like I don't want it to write stuff for me. I want it to just take what I say and then turn it into something that's written well really quick.
Yeah.
And then I always go back and edit it afterwards. And I read it out, like editing's pretty easy. I just read it out loud and then write it how I would say it. And I think that's the way of the future. Google's going to be trying to ignore AI generated content. They hide special characters in it now to flag it.
They care about that?
Yeah.
Even if it's really good content?
I think if it's good content, you can get away with it for sure. But they're going to know.
Gotcha.
That it's AI generated. And I think like they already did one where I think majority AI generated stuff is getting like less points. Like if you're the only information about a topic and it's good information, you're probably gonna be fine. But let's face it, like I heard like 2 years ago that like 60% of the stuff online was already AI generated. So at
That's-
this point,
yeah.
it's got to be like 90%.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. One thing on the content about like not just telling it to write a post or write a page or whatever. I've kind of stopped telling people I use AI for writing, unless they're kind of like in the know. But the majority of people, when I say that, it makes it sound like it's like this effortless thing where like I barely put anything into it to get an output. And so I've stopped saying that because the reality behind it is like, it'll be like just to write one post, it might be like, a couple dozen prompts, 50 iterations, and then I still edit it. And then I put it back in, and then I take it back out, and I edited it again. And then at that point, maybe I'm still not happy with it, so then I start from scratch. And so it's not really that different than just a normal writing process, but it definitely shaves off a few hours and comes up with some ideas that I couldn't have by myself in that time frame. But just a note for anyone who's like getting into this, it's not a magic bullet, but it's a really useful tool. And so, like you said, definitely worth learning.
Yeah, like it was fall of 2023 when I used AI, and I was like, okay, this is good enough to start using like daily. But I had been using it every few months before that, and it was always like, okay, this isn't good enough yet. This isn't good enough yet. Fall of 23, it was good enough to start using it. I've been using it daily, and it's getting so much better. Like, it's really good. The thing is the reason I can use it well is because I know enough to judge whether or not what it's putting out is good. And like you were just saying, like, writing is still a process. It's just a different process now.
Yeah.
Like the way this core message framework that I'm talking about, I think of it like a 3D printer or like laying a wall of bricks. Is like you're really just doing one layer at a time, and you have to layer it. And the reason it speeds things up is it's because it's like an assembly line. It's like I get all of this step done for all of it, and then I get all of this step done. And if the process is right, or if it's effective, by the time I get to the end, I have a good finished product. But it's super easy with AI to start off super strong, and then 50% of the way you just completely get off base because the AI just starts. It's like a random number generator that has guide rails, and so like you could do the same exact thing 5 times, and all 5 times you're going to get slightly varying results. And the further down the path you get, the further away from the baseline that you go.
Yeah.
So like AI right now anyway is extremely useful for things that you're already an expert at. It's like I saw a guy leave a comment on my channel saying he's been using it for 6 months to help him estimate, and it gets him 80% of the way there. And it's like that's a great use case. And like if I was even new to estimating, I would use it to help me, but I wouldn't just like take the estimate ChatGPT gave and like give it to a customer.
For sure.
Without doing something to make sure that I'm covering the risk of not knowing what the hell's going on. And so it's really good like to augment what you can do already and speed things up. But yeah, it's not a silver bullet, and it's pretty obvious when things are just purely AI generated.
Yeah. It's like being an editor at a publishing house or something. It's like, you have all these writers, and you task them with the stuff that you need done. They all come back to you with their articles, but you're still going to reject 7 out of 10 of the articles that come in, and then the remaining ones you still have to cut down and edit and make them good. And so it's like that, whether it's writing or estimating or anything. You're still at the helm, pulling the joysticks. But instead of waiting a day for all your writers to come back with articles, it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's really good for coding too, because coding is something that it either works or it doesn't. So it's easy to find the correct answer. But for stuff like writing or, more ambiguous endeavors, like there's no way of knowing whether it's right or wrong.
Definitely.